I think I am going to make just a couple comments, just in retrospect on the budget process. This obviously was not one of our smoothest budget seasons. There was it was uncomfortable. I think one of the things that made it uncomfortable was the level of rhetoric throughout the budget process, and not just from one source. Rhetoric from every place, from the media, from both boards. In general, my feeling on the rhetoric is, for the most part, folks need to just shut up and do their job. I think that trying to suggest, for one board to try and suggest how another board should do their job, when each have their constitutionally delegated responsibilities, or for any of the folks that were trying to, particularly if you weren't paying attention to what was actually going on, to weigh in and criticize one board or the other without actually understanding what's going on in the process, was irresponsible. And I saw a couple of instances of coverage in the press that I thought was irresponsible. One of the things that I thought was the most irresponsible and that was the most offensive to me was this idea that the school board was playing politics with the cuts that they suggested, and that the cuts that were suggested were carefully crafted to get people riled up and to inflict punishment on the other board, or on teachers or on students or whoever. I mean, the entire thing is absolute nonsense. Anyone who forwarded this kind of an idea, quite frankly, you just were not paying attention. The idea is idiotic on its face. This board had absolutely nothing to gain by playing politics with cuts. We sort of spitballed a list of things LCPS could possibly do without, and some of those things were unpopular. But I would be, frankly, that's the way that it should be. I mean, I would like to caution against, this board and the Board of Supervisors as well in trying to find cuts that, just focus on cuts that don't hurt. And I'll give a good example of this. We didn't have any big crowds come out in favor of buying new school buses. There were no people wearing color-coded shirts, "Save the school buses. Must buy new school buses now." I don't think I heard anybody who said how critical it was that we not have 16-year-old, 17-year-old school buses. It was a completely politically painless cut for us to put off replacing school buses. But if anyone thinks that that makes it the most fiscally responsible or fiscally conservative cut, just because no one came out and screamed about it, that's not how you judge whether or not a cut is fiscally responsible. There are some things that have to be done. The garbage needs to continue to be taken out, even if there's nobody in a color-coded shirt showing up to yell about it. And the idea that we had cuts on our list that were not easy cuts, of course. Things that we ended up cutting in the long run were not easy cuts. There were some cuts that we made very early on that I certainly were uncomfortable, I was uncomfortable with. But we can't, this body can never just sort of avoid uncomfortable cuts, avoid politically unpopular cuts, because we're worried that someone might interpret it as being, playing games. Now, I would never, ever choose an unpopular cut just to make a political statement. And I don't believe anybody on this board would do that either. We're not playing around with kids' educations here. And the suggestion by the press and by others from the other board, from emails that we got, that that's what was going on, frankly, I mean, it's offensive, it's idiotic, it's counterintuitive, it defies all logic. All this board was trying to do is figure out a way through this process with a $38 million cut. And I feel like we did it in a responsible way. You know, whether or not it looked the prettiest, it worked. We got through it, we made the cuts, we're done. But I would be very careful in the future with, you know, folks thinking that we should just target those cuts that are politically expedient, because those are not always the most fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Ms. Bergel.